What is up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Mechanic Life. In today's episode, we are making a custom stainless steel exhaust for my Toyota Tacoma. So to start making a custom exhaust, we first have to look at the stock exhaust. So what I'm going to end up doing is going under the truck and try to get some basic measurements. Usually I'm measuring the length and then measure when that bend starts. Typically I like to use something called a filler rod. Usually it's made out of aluminum, and I'll bend the aluminum to the shape of the pipe, and this will give me a general idea of what the exhaust needs to look like, what angle the bends are going to be, and then I'll take this bend and take it to the piping so that way I can get a similar shape to what I'm looking for. Now, taking a look at the muffler we are going to be using, I'm going to also be using a V-band clamp from Evil Energy, which was purchased on Amazon. This is just going to be used for easier removal of the muffler. Not shown in the video, I also did a quick run to Harbor Freight and bought a bench grinder and also a bandsaw. Now, this bandsaw unfortunately didn't really work out too well, as the blade that's on the bandsaw wasn't the appropriate one. It was actually for cutting wood, not metal, so it really only scratched the stainless and couldn't actually cut it. So I ended up using some other alternatives to cutting the pipe. Now, I ended up just using a cutting wheel on a grinder, and well, this actually didn't turn out too bad, so I'm just going to go ahead and continue on cutting all the pipe using this method. I've also used a belt sander. This is a Milwaukee belt sander that I converted, and clean up all the burrs that was on the piping, and well, use the bench grinder for that as well. Once we got a good fit up, it was time to start welding our exhaust. Since I don't have the means of back purging, I'm going to be using something called solar flux. This is to keep from sugaring the back of the stainless steel when we go to weld it. Of course, we're also going to prep our pipe using acetone to make sure we clean up the pipe properly of any type of contamination or oils. As you can see, the towels that I was using left a little bit of fibers on the pipe, but no biggie. I'll just use the torch to torch these guys off, and then I'll be ready to weld. Once again, instead of back purging, I'll be using the solar flux mixed with some acetone to be able to put on the back side of the piping to make sure we don't get any sugaring. Unfortunately, off camera, I dropped my TIG torch and it ended up cracking my FUPA 12 gas cup. Once we put solar flux on the back of the pipe and fit up all the piping, it was time to get ready to weld. Of course, I'm going to use an alternative gas cup since the FUPA 12 gas cup, well, cracked. I'm going to begin by tack welding our exhaust to make sure that we get the proper fit up, nothing starts moving around, and well, also start removing some of that tape, as we are not back purging and I don't want the tape to melt onto the exhaust. After that, it was just time to weld. Off camera, I also welded the V-band clamp onto the Total Flow muffler. Now, not my greatest welds, and of course, I'm a little bit out of practice. I have about, 10 years since I haven't TIG welded. I do a little bit of TIG welding at work, but, I do need some practice. Right, so believe it or not, this is a few weeks later, and we are continuing on working on the exhaust. The weather has not been the best. It's been raining, it's even been snowing, which is abnormal for this area. But I do live on a mountain or close to a mountain, and so whatever weather you're getting on the mountain, you're pretty much gonna get down here. So yeah, the mountain is full of snow right now, but regardless, we are gonna continue on working on the exhaust for the Toyota Tacoma. So looking at the exhaust, we still need to build a turn down. So I ended up grabbing this piece of pipe, and we're gonna end up chopping this one and then making a turn down for the exhaust, which will probably be something like that. And then we'll weld it onto the muffler. Well, after some welding, it's finally time for this exhaust to go on the truck. I'm using the ramps to give us some extra space to help us remove the exhaust because, well, you're going to need some space as the exhaust is pretty long and it has to still go over the axle of the differential, and well, it did pose a little bit of difficulty. Once the old exhaust was removed, it was time to try to install the new exhaust. Unfortunately, I ran into a dilemma with fitment. Then we have a problem. So as far as how the exhaust would fit, it would probably fit. Only dilemma is this bend is actually too high, it's too long. So we would have to shorten this in order to make this bend because, as you can see, the flanges are not flat. The other problem with this flange is the dilemma. You see that it's got the inner pipe sticks out. I don't know how long that is, maybe about an inch. And I didn't build the new exhaust like that. This one, as you can tell, it's flat, so it has no way for that pipe to enter. And so when I go to mount it, obviously it sticks out and there's a big gap here. The other dilemma is that the bend is actually too sharp and it hits right here. And all right, so after measuring what we needed to cut, we're gonna need to cut about 1.5 inches out of the exhaust, which I'm okay doing because these welds look like shit. And so we're gonna cut those off, shorten it down. So I just got done re-welding the parts that we needed to weld. It looks a little better, it's still a little bit gray. There had to be like bunch of gaps that I had to fill. And they look super gray right there where I had to fill the gap, because the way that I cut this thing is, well, not the right way to cut it. And there was like a huge gap. So I ended up cooking the stainless in that area. As you can see right there, those are big globs. In order to get the proper fitment, I ended up double flanging the exhaust, and that way it would give us some space for the inner pipe. This ended up working out well for me. I also shortened the exhaust, and next it was just time to install some hangers and try to place them in the appropriate area. Now, the exhaust is so short that it was really fitting in between two hangers, and well, I could only use one set of hangers because since it was too short, it didn't reach the other set of hangers that were further back. So I'm going to end up grabbing some of the hangers that we bought on Amazon and bend them on my Swag Off-Road press brake. I ended up marking how the hanger needs to be bent in order to get a proper fitment. Now, what I love about this press brake is it is air over hydraulic, so that I could get the appropriate bends without having to hand pump the press. And this ended up turning out pretty good. Oh, fuck. After welding the hanger onto the exhaust, it was time for the install. As we are under the vehicle, you can see how the exhaust ended up fitting. Actually, it looks really nice, and I really can't wait to hear what it sounds like. So, just finished fabricating that exhaust, welded up the hanger and installed. Let's see what this bad girl sounds like. I just finished the exhaust and it's pretty tame for the most part. I actually have the truck running right now. See if I can go under there. It's pretty quiet. And that's pretty much what I'm kind of going for. Of course, as you rev it up, it does have a little bit of a tone to it. So let me do some rev up shots and then, yeah. That's going to be the end of this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I learned a lot about myself and about my welding skill. We're inside the truck, and you could barely even tell that it has an exhaust on it. You could kind of hear it, but it's not super loud. And I could only rev up to about 4,000. But I think it sounds great, and we'll see how long I could sustain a noise, because the truck has been quiet ever since I bought it, and now I have an exhaust on it. So hopefully, yeah, hopefully it doesn't drive me nuts. Anyway, guys, hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll catch you guys on the next video. See ya.